Welcome to the Onyx Report, a program that critically analyzes the experiences, histories, and perceptions of black males in American society across age, class, region, sexuality, and profession. I'm your host, DrTHasanJ, Associate Professor of Africana Studies at Fresno State, Black Male Studies Scholar, and Black Male Advocate. In the program, we examine current events and major issues using an empirically driven Black Masculinist theoretical lens, thus including such concepts as the black male dual economy, anti-black misandry, phallicism, the subordinate male target hypothesis, and the black dynarchy. Our goal is to remind people, including black men themselves, of black men's humanity. Join us every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, either on YouTube or innerlightradio.com. All right, people, welcome back to the Onyx Report, April 15th. In here, just getting acclimated still. Woke up in some pain today, so I took something for pain, and it kicked in 5 minutes before the show started. So I hope I'm completely clear, but in the moment, I'm feeling very good. Anyway, today's show, we're dealing with mate selection, policy influences in the black family, and I have two brothers that I'll be introducing to you in a moment. We're going to have a dialogue about observations on the state of the black family, the state of dating and mating, and a lot of that, as you all know, is going to be from the vantage point of black men. As this show, is framed, it's really about, black men being able to articulate their experiences and their truths from their own context. And so that's definitely what we're going to be doing today. But as you guys know, the way I like to generally start this is to, just very quickly touch off on a couple of quick things, especially in relation to current events. I'm not going to do a lot of that today because I want to give some time to the discussion, and we're actually going to listen to a video posted by one of my guests. So that'll be about a nice little segment that I think will be of interest to you. First off, let me say I hope you guys are being safe. I hope you guys are taking care of family and you're able to do so. Shout out to those of you that have to go out and work and risk your health to do so, especially in particular to the men who are holding down families with their efforts and their sacrifice. I know in many instances you're unthanked, you're unacknowledged, and much of the time you're taken for granted. So if nobody else is saying it, I want to say it, shout out to you. And I hope you're being careful in the midst of protecting those that you love. And that goes even for brothers who are out there by themselves, which is a whole nother issue unto itself. If you are isolated, you are taking care of yourself, and there's nobody there, your brothers here at the Onyx Report are definitely with you. And we send our energy and support your way. Keep your head up and stay connected, no matter how isolated things can feel. All right. Real quick, mention, I started about a week and a half ago, I started a new service to my Patreon supporters, my $20 a month Patreon supporters. I'm doing 2 to 4 film reviews that are on video format that you'll have access to on a variety of films. And this is designed for fathers to speak to their sons, particularly through this quarantine, about issues relevant to black manhood, masculinity, and so on and so forth. So I'm doing 2 to 4 film reviews per month that you'll have access to as a $20 a month Patreon supporter. You can find me on patreon.com/THasanJohnson. And I am doing custom reviews for those who are requesting particular films. The first one in the queue already is a story written by Walter Mosley, acted by Lawrence Fishburne, Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned. And within the next 48 hours, I'll be posting the second review on Samuel Jackson's The Banker. So that'll be available to those who are interested. And again, this is actually supporter requested. And it is a series of film reviews, discussion points, historical narratives, and suggestions on how to include your own family history so you and your children can actually watch, and loved ones can watch films together, and you'll have some added information to bring to bear on having those discussions, particularly around black manhood. Right? So moving on real quick, I want to shout out. This is thanks to Kwadwo Adogyan. I want to shout out the passing of one Baba Omawale Osunkoya, who formerly was known as Charles Brunson, Black Panther activist who was survived by his wife, Ia Margot. I want to shout them out. We are having, soldiers are going down in response to this virus. I want to shout out my brothers in New York who were kind enough to respond to a post I made on Facebook, I think yesterday. Time flows differently in the midst of this quarantine, but yesterday I posted on the 10,000 that were reported as having died in New York. And of course, there was some backlash about interpretation and whether or not those numbers were accurate. And so I requested that brothers from New York write in and tell us what they're going through. And some of the stories were just, heartbreaking. They were appalling. Ambulances going on throughout the day, throughout the night, friends, family members, passing, people dying in their homes and not being found. So I want to shout out to those of you, especially in New York, who are grappling with this to unprecedented degrees. Again, keep your head up, be safe, keep your head on a swivel, and make sure you are as careful as possible. As far as Fresno, where I'm located, obviously, it's a far different, case than something like New York. In Fresno, we're looking at right about now, as of April 14th, there's about 251 cases, and this is Fresno County. It's about 251 cases and about 7 deaths. So it has been low, and at the end of the day, I'm grateful for that, but we're still trying to stay vigilant, just to make sure, especially in an era where Black men are being criminalized for wearing the very masks that we're being told may protect us in certain instances. So I want to definitely kind of caution you. There are a number of articles out on this. So all you need to do is Google Black men, masks, criminalization, or just Black men and masks, and you'll likely come up with a few articles looking at how Black men are being treated, as was the case for one Black doctor in Miami who was testing the homeless for COVID-19 and was detained just outside of his home on video by a police officer who put him in cuffs and threatened to take him off to his car until his wife was able to bring out his ID and verify who he was. And they say that they thought he was illegally offloading trash, but we know that many of these instances, we don't even need to be in a quarantine to be treated this way, or in a mask for that matter. But just doing what we've all been told would make us safe is an opportunity for Black men to find themselves under even more threat. So, again, these issues most issues in many ways impact Black men differently. And as I've said on recent shows, this is also the case for COVID-19, even in terms of deaths. And one of the things I want to remind my audience to check into is what we tend to find is in the Black community, when we talk about issues that affect us, we either talk about it in this kind of amalgamous Black idea, or if we genderize it, we only talk about that in relation to women and girls. So if it's an issue that overwhelmingly impacts Black males, it's a Black issue. If it overwhelmingly impacts Black women and girls, it's a Black women or Black girls issue. And that tends to leave boys and men as secondary, right? And we tend to have the attitude, well, we already know what issues affect them. And I've heard academics say this verbatim: we know enough about Black men, there's nothing else to discuss. When in actuality, there's quite a bit. So even if we're talking about COVID-19 deaths, try and follow the data and not just the theory or the assumptions about who this virus is affecting. Follow the data as it's presented on the number of Black men that are dying. And if you're in a position to demand details, then don't just demand details on the basis of race. Let's demand it on the basis of both race and gender, mainly because Black men are leading in many ways, and this is due to a variety of social conditions that also influence this in regard to everything from poverty to health. And so Black men are highly susceptible, having to work in many instances, and at the same time being vulnerable based on our health and so on and so forth. So let's make sure we actually ask the question and be specific and unapologetic about asking about black men, because that's another thing many of us have been trained to do, is to be chivalrous to the degree that we don't know how to isolate ourselves, ask questions about ourselves, and engage our issues, because we're told that our issues are just black issues, and I think we're in a new day and era where that is far too general. Let's see. What I'm going to do from here. Check out an article, just real quickly, check out two articles that might be of interest to you. There's one on political.com about the New York public housing outbreak of COVID-19 and how it's wreaking havoc in New York City's public housing sector. And then also look into an article on NewYorkTimes.com on the San Francisco shelter outbreak. So that's the COVID-19 homeless shelter outbreak. And as I've said on the show for the last few weeks, the two most susceptible and most observed communities that are like a time bomb in relation to any kind of serious virus are the incarcerated and the homeless, both of which are overrepresented in regard to black men. So again, we find ourselves vulnerable on those two fronts as well. And those two communities are tied together, right? Because many homeless people are incarcerated for being homeless. And then there are plenty of convicts that are being released, they're ex-cons, but have no place to go and end up homeless and end up being the foundation of many major urban tent cities that we're seeing. So these two populations are linked, and we're seeing some reporting on the extent that the virus has impacted both communities. But because both communities are so under-observed, it's my suspicion that by the time we see articles on it, it's 10 times worse than it is, because there is no checking how fast this can spread, particularly amongst those two populations. So be mindful and definitely send out positive energy and prayers to those communities, especially in relation to black men. So I have two guests today, both of whom are brothers that I've run into on social media and whose observations, whose perspectives and experiences I thought were interesting and offered us a moment of reflection. So the way we're going to go about this, I'm going to be introducing my good brother Rais Muhaddin, and then I'm going to be introducing my brother Doug from Atlanta, and we're going to dialogue about, as I said earlier, mating selection, the black family, and policy influences. Now I'm going to start this by playing a video from Mr. Muhaddin, and he is a 17-year logistics supervisor. He's a Muslim and a community activist. And he had some very interesting observations on the black family. And then from there, I'm going to bring in, after we play the video, I'll bring in my good brother Doug from Atlanta to share an experience he had that I think weighs heavily in the lives of black men. Okay, so let's start the video with Mr. Muhaddin, please.
Okay. Feedback. Okay. So anyway, I want to talk about, because a lot of times we beat each other up, or we encourage the beating of self up over the choices that we make in the mate. But there are some. Oh, just by the way, if you ask like what qualifies me on this subject, I tell people all the time, like I work in logistics, and so in logistics I am encouraged to understand the process of things. So I need to know, like, I put everything on the table, what is valued in the process, what is not valued in the process, and how to make the process more efficient. And so what we're talking about here is the efficiency of mate selection, So the first thing you have to do is understand it from this perspective, right? When you go in any particular restaurant, right, the choices that you have are limited by the particular restaurant that you find yourself in, right? So if I go into Olive Garden, right, I can't ask for deluxe fried rice with no pork, right? I'm limited in the scope. I'm limited in the scope because of the particular restaurant that I chose. Well, it's the same when you're trying to choose a mate, right? There are different selections in different ethnicities. There are different selections in different ethnicities. So you have some people who marry outside of their race, right? They need, what they desire is something outside of the context in which they are typically looking for a mate. But when you're talking about looking for a mate in the black community, what's the family structure of the black community? Because that's going to determine the quality of the mates. And that's the reason why you don't have these conversations that we have about mate selection amongst black people that you have, let's say, amongst Asian people, right? Because I say this almost every day, 83% of black children will see their families dissolve by the time they're 18. That is imperative when you're talking about the mate selection of the coming generation, right? The coming generation is going to have to choose a mate from that 83% of black families that were dissolved before the age of 18. That's where you got to choose your mate from. You got to choose your mate from those dissolution families. That's where you choose your mate from. That's the restaurant that you go to choose your mate. So don't beat yourself up about your individual selection, because sometimes people act like there are these plethora of qualified black mates out there and you just chose the shitty ones. And that's just not how it happens, man. You choose somebody that you think that you can overcome that 83% with, right? You choose someone that you think you can overcome that 83% with, but there's a reason that they're that 83%. There's a reason for that. So don't beat yourself up about that. If the only option that you have to choose a better mate is to, you know, like, I mean, let's just be real. If I wanted the mate that I think I deserve, I would probably have to go to the Asian community, because it's obvious that they have the family and value structures that I value, right? Amongst my people, we don't value that. That's why we have 83%. If we didn't have the 83% failure rate in our family structures, then we would be able to find people who value family the way we all claim to value family. But that's not what we do. We don't value family. That's why 83% of black children will see their family dissolve by the age of 18, and 67%, 7 out of 10, will see their families dissolve before they are 2, which means we can't keep a relationship together for 2 years. And those are the people that you got to choose a mate from. And I'm trying to say to you that your choice is not merely your choice. Your choice is not merely your choice. Your choice is determined by the context in which you have to make that choice in. And we have to make that choice in a context where 83% of our family structures fall apart. That means we, as individuals who are making the choice, have the values of a community that 83% of our children will see their family dissolve by the age of 18. Those are our values. Our values are facilitating that conclusion. And that's why in our relationships, we can't find the right mate, because there is no mate in a context where 83% of our family structures dissolve. All right. Amongst Asians in America, particularly, right? I don't know what it is in Asia. Amongst American Asians, 20% of their children will see their family dissolve by the age of 18. That means in the Asian community, they have good mates that reproduce good mates. They have good mates that reproduce good mates. We don't have good mates that reproduce good mates. That's not what we do. What we do is more of a smorgasbord, right? Like when we go into the restaurant, we just pick anything from anywhere, because that's the options that exist amongst us. Those are the options that exist amongst us. And it's all a matter of logistics, right? How we mate, how we select family, how we develop family, how we sustain family. All of that is going to determine the mates that are available to us, to our children, to our grandchildren. And we don't seem to think this is important, right? So the other day in the group, I asked, does it matter about a person's sexual history? And almost unanimously, everybody said, no, it doesn't matter. And I'm saying it's ironic, right? That for us, we don't think it matters how many sexual partners you have, but we can't find a decent partner, right? And I'm telling you, because I work in logistics, that's what I do for a living. I make these connections to make sure that the process is efficient. I make these connections to make sure that the process is efficient. See, you think it's about the individual, and I'm telling you, no, it's about the process that creates the individual, right? Working in distribution, one of the things that you get to see is the quality of productivity and the quality of manufacturing, right? So like if you want to go out and buy something of quality, like if you buy, let's say for example, I work on my car and I buy tools, right? I want to buy tools based on the quality of the tool. When you buy a tool that say made in China, it's not going to be a quality tool. Why? Because they don't have the standard to create the tools that are necessary for the job that you need to do. The job that you need to do. The tool it's not built for that. So you got to go get a Craftsman, right? Craftsman is made in America. Craftsman is one of the best tools you can buy. I suspect. I'm not a mechanic. I work on my car, but I'm not a mechanic. But if you go to a mechanic will tell you the best tool that you need to buy. And he'll tell you, don't buy that cheap stuff made elsewhere. You need to buy something that's made in America, because men who work on stuff make stuff for men who work on stuff. So they make better quality here in America that's going to work for those tools. And I'm saying, if we want better mates, we got to have better families. And there's no other alternative. Do you understand? There's no other alternative. And I know people, I know this for a fact, that when people raising their kids, they don't care about who their kids are going to be for somebody else. But in the Asian community, that's not the case, right? In the Jewish community, that's not the case. In the Arab community, that's not the case. They all have in mind their children and who their children are going to marry, and who their children are going to reproduce, and who they're going to raise, right? Because the fundamental aspect of, I'll say marriage, but it's just relationships or mating or reproducing in general, right? Is that you're not just producing physical beings, right? You're producing emotional beings, spiritual beings, social beings, all these characteristics that have to be built into the person. And that means that you have to have the structures that produce those people that can reproduce those people. And that's not what we do. That's not what we do. And people be talking to me like, do you see your children? Like, do I see my children? Like, do you understand like the importance and the value structures that are necessary to get my children to be valuable mates for somebody else's children? And that does not include seeing your children, right? It does not include child support. Like, when you listen to our arguments and our debates over how we engage, how we develop, and how we nurture our children, it's not about family. It's not about family. So I'm saying, if you're looking for a mate that comes from a structure that is not about family, what's going to be the quality of that mate? It's going to be you're going to have very shallow relationships. One sister said every guy she's been with has been a bum. Like, what you have to understand is, black children don't inherit nothing from their parents. They don't inherit nothing from their parents. When you look at, so like here in St. Louis, I live in St. Louis, like something like 90% of the homeless are black men. 90% of the homeless are black men. And what that means is, like, there's a bell curve of options that are available to you, right? And a bell curve moves from left to right. So on the left end is the low, on the right end is the high. We are very heavy on the left end, right? We're very heavy on the left end. And that's why for a lot of black men, they're involved in a lot of crime, right? Because they're on the bottom. They're on the bottom. So of course, if you decide to date a black man, the likelihood that he's going to be a bum is very high. It's very high, right? I'm in middle management, right? And I do these trainings, and I go to these trainings with the managers and the VPs and all these people. I do these trainings, and the higher up I go in the organization, the fewer black men I see, right? And what I think about when I see this context is the fact that that it's what I say. On the bottom, on the left side, on the bottom end is going to be a lot of black men. On the top end is going to be few black men, which means when black women go out to look for a mate, you're going to find a lot of those choices coming from the bottom. And that's not their fault, right? We have a history here that has pushed us and forced us into the bottom. And then we are not doing what we need to do to facilitate a better outcome. If you want better men, black women, we got to have better families. There's no way around it. There's no alternative. There's no mentoring. There's no stepdads. There's not enough It's crazy, right? You can't. The idea that you're going to have better stepdads indicates that you had better dads to begin with. None of that works. We need to lock our families down. We need to secure our families, and we need to do the work to produce better mates for each preceding generation. And that's not what we're doing. We do what's best for us. We do what's best for us. You know, I used to think, and I'll close with this. I used to think when people say they stay together for the children, that, you know, like, why would you stay together for the children? What about your life? But now I know, right? Because if the Jews have a saying, if I'm not for me, who will be? But if I am only for me, then who have I become? Who have I become if I'm only for me? And so when people talk about they love their children, I don't see that love in the family structures that we have, right? In order to love your children, there has to be love available in the structure, and there is no love in our structure. Our structure is about child support. It's about keeping it in your pants. It's about a lot of silly stuff that has nothing to do with love, and so we don't produce people who have the capacity to love.
Okay, powerful words. Brother Mais, tell us a little bit about what prompted that particular, analysis.
I have these conversations. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so I have these conversations routinely, right, on social media. And I get a lot of feedback from Black people about mate selection and choosing better. And one of the things I realize is, like, anytime you're having a discussion about any topic, right, you have to contextualize the topic. And this choose better statement keeps coming out. You got to choose the right person. I mean, for me personally, I'm twice divorced now, and people keep saying to me, you should have chosen better. What about the choices that you made? And so obviously I start to do the research, because I want to understand, like, how am I making my choices? Where am I making my choices? And then when you look at the data, it's like, oh, like if 83% of our families are not surviving our children's development, then what's the impact of my choice, right? Like, if I have a barrel of 100 apples and 83 of them are rotten, and you telling me to reach into that barrel and pick a good apple, what are the odds of me picking a good apple? And so that's why I was looking at it from that perspective. And so then I go and look at other communities and the choices that they're making in their family structures and the intactness of those structures, right? And as Black people, we've had this problem for decades now. I think the Moynihan report back in 65 or 64 talked about the out of wedlock birth rates and how it was going to create the very circumstances that we're looking at today.
And it's only increased, obviously, since then. But what you're arguing is you came out of an experience as an individual, and you decided to study the environment that produces individuals. And this is one of the things that drew me to your video, because I appreciated, I appreciated the act of asking the question and pulling it out of an individualist framework, because I hear the same things you're talking about, where choices are just dismissed as individual problems, as individual faults, and I think especially as Black men, we've developed a language of punishing ourselves in a very particular way for conditions that we don't control. Now, right. I want to bring in my colleague Doug from Atlanta. I want to bring him in, and I want him to tell his story, because I think it fits in this dialogue. And after we have it, I think, we'll be able to kind of better contextualize it, because even though he's going to talk about his experience as an individual, again, I want to bring that into the larger environmental discussion. So let me bring him in. Doug, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Dr. Johnson. Can you hear me?
Yes. Share with us your experience, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so this incident happened back when I was in college, and that kind of came to mind. I was telling Dr. Johnson, I was watching one of his earlier interviews that he had with Dr. Lamont Basil, I believe is his name.
Lehman Basil, yeah.
Lehman Basil, yes. My sorry for the mispronunciation.
No.
Lehman Basil. So I'm in college. It's senior year. I had a class. Just one class I had to take to finish up my degree, and met a young lady in there. She seemed really cool, and we started talking or whatever, and decided, we started dating. So, started dating, and this whole thing, the whole incident took place over probably about a period of 6 months. So that was the time period we were dating each other. So, I, were liking her, been going out, and I let her know, we're things were going really well, and I wanted to, I wanted to become intimate with her. I mean, young man, that's kind of, if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, you want to get to that point, right? So, she said that she was, kind of wanted to take it slow, and, she wasn't saying it was out of the question, just she wasn't there. So I was like, all right, cool, no problem. So we continued to date. So one day, we decided we'd go out to dinner, finish up dinner. We, go to drop her back off at her apartment, and, she asked, like, hey, why not come inside? And I was like, all right, cool. So, she said she's taking it slow, so I'm just, I'm come inside, then we'll have, like, maybe get a drink or something, I'll head on my way. And she was like, well, no, I want you, you can stay the night over here. It's kind of late. And so I was like, okay. And, I'm still, not jumped to any conclusions, because trying to be respectful and everything. And so I offered and said, like, okay, well, I'll just sleep on the couch out here. You get me like a blanket and some pillows. So, I just, it'll be cool. And she's like, oh no, you can come sleep in the room, sleep in the bed with me. So I'm like, all right. Now I'm still thinking, all right, I'm not going to jump to conclusions. Like, I'm not going to make assumptions, because she had made it clear that she wanted to take things slow or whatever. So I said to myself, right, I'm going to let her, let me know how this is going to play out. So if she, goes, gets undressed and comes back like in like sweats and just will dress out, okay, I'm going to assume like, hey, it's, it's nothing going to happen. But if she comes back and she's, dressed, kind of skimpily, showing some skin, that kind of thing, like, cool. So she goes and changes, she comes back out, she's wearing like a little halter shirt and just her panties. So I'm thinking, all right, well, I guess, I guess it's gonna be the moment. So she gets in bed, we're kind of laying there, kind of cuddling and whatnot. I try to, take it to the next level, and she was like, no, she didn't want to do that. So I said, all right, cool, I respected, her wishes, and she said she just wanted to be held. So I was like, all right. So, I stayed the night, and I'm just thinking like, wow, like, I'm really confused now, because like you brought me in, you brought me back to your room, wearing like the little outfit. But I was like, all right, you know what, whatever, I'm just gonna, be respectful, whatnot. So next morning, get up, I let her know how I was feeling. Like, I felt like I had kind of been let on, because if she had just said at the beginning, like, hey, I sleep on the couch, hey, would have been fine with that. I clearly know what that is. That is not in any way indicating to me that there's any thought of being, intimate. So I'm cool, but that's not what happened. So I said, I felt kind of let on. I just, that wasn't cool to me. So, I left out of there. So probably about a week goes by. We don't talk. Finally enough, she called me a couple of times. I kind of answered, but said like I had stuff to do. So we finally talked, for real, about a week later, and just general conversation. So we go out on another date. This is probably maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks after the incident. So we were supposed to go out, because she had actually said she wanted me to come by and watch a movie with her. And I was like, all right, cool, but I got to get up and go to work early the next morning, so I'm just gonna come watch the movie, and then I'm gonna go home. And so she was like, fine, that's fine. So I go on over there, say, hey, we order some pizza, we watch the movie's cool, we kind of, sit next to each other, kind of snuggled up or whatever, and the movie goes off. So I'm like, all right, cool, enjoyed it, had a good time, I'm gonna head home. And she's like, nah, why don't you stay, watch another movie? So I'm like, I gotta get up. She's like, no, just watch one more movie. So I'm like, all right, fine. So we watch another movie, same deal, everything's cool. She kind of falls asleep during the movie and whatnot. So movie goes off. I wake up, I'm like, hey, had a good time, it was good seeing you, but I gotta head out, I gotta work tomorrow, so I'm gonna call you tomorrow. And she's like, well, why don't you just, I thought you're gonna stay the night. And I was like, nah, I said I was, just coming over to watch the movie, watch 2 movies or whatever, but I'm going home, I'm going back to my apartment, and I'm gonna go to sleep and get up to work next day, but I'm gonna call you tomorrow, and we'll just continue from there. So she persists on saying, like, well, no, I thought you were gonna stay. And I'm like, well, no, I said from the get-go that I was coming to watch the movie and I was leaving to go and get some sleep and go to work, and say, I'm gonna call you tomorrow. Like, I had a good time. It's good seeing you. It was cool, but I'm gonna bounce. So she's, kind of looking upset, and she's like, fine, whatever. And I'm just like, okay, because I didn't know what else to tell her, because I had been very clear about what my intentions were coming over there, watching the movie and then going home and everything. So I'm getting my stuff together, and I see her, she's checking her phone, which it's not unusual. Folks, they check the phone, and actually she had a missed call while she was asleep, so I'm guessing she was looking at that. But as I'm getting my bag and everything, like, I hear her on the phone, like, she's like, hello, is this 911? It's like, yeah, there's a strange man in my apartment and he won't leave. And I turned around and I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, what are you doing? And her response to me was, well, what did you expect me to do? And I'm like, really? And I've seen how this plays out before. We all know, look, black man in a woman's apartment, cops show up
right
2 a.m. I know how that's gonna go down. Like, I don't want no part of that. I've had a pretty good life so far that I like to continue to go the way it's been going. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave. Like, so I was like, I just left out of there as quickly as I could, man. I went home. I didn't call the next day, obviously. She tried to call 3 days later. I didn't talk to her. I was like, I'm done. Like, this is it. So probably maybe 3 months or so later, and she had been kind of trying to call me on and off, and I hadn't answered. And I'm dating another woman this time. Like, we had been together, so we were kind of like boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. And so I was finally like, all right, let me just, like, she's gonna keep calling me. It seems it's been 3 months. Let me just talk to her, clear it out, close it out, and then at least say that I've said, like, hey, it's over, we're done, whatever. So I answer a phone call, and then she tells me this long story about how, well, when it happened, with her calling the cops, like, well, she is schizophrenic, and she went to the doctor, and he told her that she's schizophrenic, so that's why she called, because she wasn't in the right mind, but she still wants to be able to talk and stuff. I was like, I don't know if she was telling the truth. The line, I didn't go that far in investigating it, because at that point, that just didn't really matter. I was just like, you know what?
Right.
It's over. I'm done. I'll just leave, cutting her out my life. So I cut off all contact, and it was over with. But I mean, it's just, it's I couldn't make up that story if I wanted to.
Right.
I was that creative.
Well, but one of the interesting things is you sent me the story in writing, and I posted it, and it was interesting to see how many black men had similar experiences. I didn't communicate this with you, Doug, but I had men write me quick blurbs, and because I posted that earlier today, and I have men write me quick blurbs on how they had similar experiences, and so we could definitely go off on a tangent in terms of schizophrenia or other, psychological disorders, but that's not the focus of the show, because we know it doesn't require that for the issue to impact black men adversely. It doesn't require that at all, especially in a context where there are no significant punishments for women that file false claims. But simply on the basis of the accusation, many black men have lost their careers, lost their families. And I'll give you two very quick examples. I posted an article on ex-Titan football player Myron Rolle. I don't know if I mispronounced his last name, but he is in his third year residency, and he's on the front lines dealing with COVID-19. And I posted an article in honor of him in terms of the work he's doing, but I remembered that it wasn't long ago that celebrity Amanda Seales had accused him of sexual harassment, but not necessarily, she claims later, not a harassment that he committed against her, but something anonymous. An anonymous woman came forward and told her in private. And so she publicized that, no evidence, no official charges, and that could have severely damaged his relationship. Or an even worse story having to do with a father. This is, I think this one goes back to 2013. And there's an NBCnews.com article you can find. It's called "Daughter, I Lied and Sent My Dad to Prison for Rape." And it was basically a story about a 9-year-old girl at the time whose mother was a drug addict and told her that if she didn't, tell the authorities that her father had raped her, that she would get a spanking. So she reported her father at the behest of the mother. The father's been in jail and still is in jail to my knowledge, even though his daughter, who's now an adult, and his ex-wife, the mother in the situation, have both come forward, because the mother is now rehabilitated. She's gotten treatment for her addictions. Both women have come forward to say that this was fabricated, and he's still in jail, right? Simply on the basis of the accusation. No evidence, no empirical data, no medical data, nothing. Just the accusation alone is enough, right? So when I bring this up, the connection between the two of you is that if we're going to start having conversations about family, about putting together families, about mating issues and being able to detect, who good partners can be and so on and so forth, raising children, things of that nature, one of the challenges to that, among many, are the various policy issues that impact black men. So in that instance, going back to Doug, the idea that you can be reported without evidence and have your entire life, especially as a black man, upended, right, with no qualifications, no repercussions for her, even after it comes out that it's a falsified filing, nothing, right? What impact does that have? And we can talk about other policies. We can talk about carceral policies going back to the Rockefeller laws. We can talk about the ways black men have been hyper incarcerated to the degree where 1 in 3 will be incarcerated at some point or have some contact with a criminal justice institution, and 1 in 10 are locked down at the moment. We could talk about double minority status and affirmative action from the 1980s to the 90s, where black men are not able to compete in certain spaces because they don't offer as many opportunities for minority filing for corporations in particular, but other types of professions as black women do. These things adversely affect our employment, they affect our freedom, they affect our public perception, our reputations, and yet, in the context of building relationships and families, these can serve as serious impediments. And this goes back to something Brother Mais said very earlier on when he said, in terms of the options available, and at that point he was talking about black women's dating options, but when you really look at the issues that affect black men, many of them are influenced by policy, meaning they are backed by law at some point. They adversely impact black men's ability to compete. And we can talk about that on an individual level, and there's room for that because that's where, many of these discussions go. But on the Onyx Report, I'm very interested in the data. I'm very interested in acknowledging the environment that produces the conditions that people grapple with, right? So that's the reason I brought you two together, because I think between both analyses, both stories, what we're looking at is a situation that makes and puts black men in a highly vulnerable situation, right? Any responses to any of that from either of you? What do you think?
I mean,
Yes. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, sorry. So for me, I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. I don't think as a community, as black people, and I think a lot of times as black men, we don't take serious the impact that ecology and systems have on what we do and what we can become in society. That is to say, when you talk about choices, like what Brother Mais was talking about, the choice is not made in a void. Choice is made has a right. Mm-hmm. So, and with his analogy, like he gave at the restaurant, I mean, it's the same deal. Like you have to have the choices available to you that allow you to be the person that you want to be based on your values. Right. If you don't have those choices available to you, you can't become that. That's like, if you have a restaurant, you go with the restaurant analogy, you have a restaurant that's, it has choices of, you can get like, chicken, beef, or pork, but you're a vegetarian, right? And so they say, okay, we're going to give you another choice of fish. Well, none of those choices allow you to actualize yourself as a vegetarian, because that's like your particular value. You want to be a vegetarian. So, that has to do with the system that set up those choices. That doesn't have to do with you making the right or wrong choice, because the choice for you to be is literally not available to you.
It's not available.
We have to address these systems and this ecology that is set up so that we don't the choices. We don't have the range of choices or or the quantity of choices. Because even if you say like, well, there's some individual that no matter what obstacle you put in front of them can rise above and become great, like, well, that's true, and that's always true. You always have those few people that there's just nothing you can put in their way that's going to stop.
Well,
but that's not how a community elevates.
And again, we can even talk about the choices black men have available to them, because one of the challenges I find that black men end up dealing with, especially at the working class level or the underclass level, is often, you know, in order to prove their worthiness as men, you know, often my students will talk about this, how, you know, they're requested to have as much as she is to be able to demonstrate that they can be providers. But often what ends up happening is individual men are weighed against a system of support a given woman may have. You know, so she might have access to various types of social benefits that he doesn't have, and the question of whether or not he can compete and demonstrate his ability to be a provider or whatever, you know, even though we like to say those things don't matter in 2020, men still report being, you know, that those are factors that they're measured against. But he often has to be able to out-earn the system of support she has as an individual. And the extent to which he's not able to is supposed to mark him as lesser than, right? So those things impact choices too, in terms of what choices men have available in a variety of women that often have more social access than they. But Brother Mais, weigh in on this. What are some of your thoughts?
So as I listen to you guys speak, so remember I told you I always try to contextualize. So as I listen, I have information come in and then I try to feed it back out based on what I'm looking at in the context. And when you talk about having choices in the restaurant, it's not just that we don't have choices. The system is like, there are these narratives out there that are, they're like hidden narratives. You don't see them as a black man because you're raised up in the system. So, and nobody's telling you along the way. That's one of the problems of not having the appropriate family structure, is that you are not giving a counter narrative to the narrative that's against you. So not only do you not have choices in the restaurant that's available, the choices that you are making are poison. Specifically, like it's almost like it's genetically designed to be poison against you, so that you're making these choices that are inherently against your self-expression, if you will. And if we don't talk about those narratives that exist, those counter structures to black manhood and black masculinity that creates a black man that doesn't even know that he's not meeting his, like he thinks he's making choices. I hear black men all the time blaming themselves, beating themselves up when they don't, and there's no acknowledgement that there's this entire system. And unfortunately, because of the breakdown of the black family, even in the black community, that narrative is playing itself out against black men. And so it's not just that we don't have the right choices. Even if we think we're making the right choices, those choices are compromised against the integrity of our self-expression. And so when you talk about a woman being able to use the police as a weapon against a black man as a result of her mental state, where her mental state is not checked. Her mental state is not checked. And so you talk about the compromising of these black men's integrity by just a mere accusation. And so like when you create a system is supposed to have checks and balances, right? We don't want women to find themselves being assaulted and having no way to defend themselves and their integrity. But you also, there has to be a way to check and balance that, to make sure that that system is not being utilized against black men. And because this conversation here, it's a rare conversation where black men get to have an honest conversation. It doesn't, like, I don't want it to appear like, because you have some of these black men out here and you can tell that there's this rage and anger against black women, and I don't want to be a part of that, right? But I do want a system that is balanced to the benefit of those people who are striving for good. Whether you're a man or a woman, you're striving for virtue, you're trying to be an honest person with integrity and striving in this what they call a meritocracy. But actually what's happening is it's a meritocracy for certain people at the cost of other people. And not having a conversation, then what it means is you're being told, like, this has always been our position as black people, but now it seems to be more explicitly directed at black men, where I even hear black women saying black men need to do this. But in what context though? In what context is that your expectation of what a black man is and what he should be, and who raised that black man? How is he aware of his masculinity and his manhood? What is that supposed to be? And so there's a way where that woman was able to utilize the system against an individual black man. And I promise you, there will be people out there who will say, he should have done this, he should have done that.
Of course,
like,
of course.
Wow. Like,
Well, you know,
but
let's add to that though. Because you know, some of the men that responded to me when they talked about their experiences, one of the things that they said was that it didn't actually have to do with any particular psychological condition or anything of that nature. It was strictly on the basis of her being upset that he did not do what she told him to. Now, that's an interesting thing when you think about it, because it's one thing to say somebody is suffering from a very particular issue that they've had diagnosed and they may or may not be treated for. It's another thing if you've experienced this from people who haven't necessarily been diagnosed with anything in particular, but are responding to whether or not you are being, are following directives that they believe you need to follow. If you're in a situation where you can have the authorities levied against you simply because you haven't done what someone else wants you to do, now we're talking about a very particular set of control issues where the state can be levied against the individual. And this is not just limited to false claims of sexual assault or rape, for that matter. We can also have this conversation in the context of something like child support, right, or divorce. And this is something I reported on a couple months ago, where you even had lawyers coming forth saying that they actually do routinely tell their female clients in the context of divorce that filing false charges, especially of abuse to children, is one method of securing confidence from the court on who should get custody and what types of child support and supervision should come into play. So there are multiple institutions on the table in regard to what can be levied against individual black men. And as you pointed out a moment ago, not very many platforms where black males can talk about these experiences.
Right. No, I agree.
Any reflections on now? I'm not sure about Doug, but I know Mai said you were divorced. Any reflections on divorce that may play into this narrative as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I need you to understand. So I have, there's a way I look at reality, right? I always try to look at reality and contextualize it. I bring that up over and over again. So in my own personal situation, my ex-wife left me for another man and put a restraining order on me, which got me put out of my house. She was to secure child support. Like, I didn't even, the day I was supposed to go see the judge, I had some work matters that I could not leave my job. And so they levied child support against me, put a restraining order against my house. She took the money for child support and didn't pay the mortgage. So I couldn't pay for where I was living, pay the mortgage, and pay the child support. She didn't pay the mortgage. I lost my house for nothing. Like the inheritance that I had for my kids in my house is gone. And I can't go to the courts and say, she did this. I can't, there's no space for me to do that. Like this, and I'm saying, but she was able to go to the courts, create this scenario in which I was the bad guy, and it was just the judge scribbled a signature on it, and that was it. There was nothing I can do. Now, people can come and say, like, I should have got a legal team, but what black man can afford a legal team against the system? Like, when I went to talk to the attorney, they was talking about $250 an hour. Like, with the restraining order, with the child support, with the house, all of that stuff, my living conditions, there's no way I could afford to pay an attorney $250 an hour.
Well, and you just pointed out why there are many black men that are not able to fight those kind of claims or get custody, because at the end of the day, many of them can't afford the legal kind of protection to push that angle. That's a very important point when we go back to the question of the environment and the context that produces these situations. You know what I mean? But we only have a couple of minutes. Any final reflections from either of you?
Doug, I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, first I'd say, thanks for having me on. Just to share that I hope, my experience, which unfortunately is not the worst of what a lot of brothers out here experience, can help someone in some way. by hearing that, engaging in these conversations. But additionally, I would say that what we've all kind of talked about here today is essentially the black man is held to, a lot of times held to a standard, same standard as the white man in society as far as from our women. And what I mean is, so if you look at the white man, traditional narrative about men, if you look at everything, generally speaking, about white men, they have access to resources, both legal, social, cultural, economic, that allow them to have the dominant position in their families, in their communities. Whereas black men, that we don't have those same legal, social, cultural, economic institutions backing us. And so we have the same expectation levied upon us as men from a lot of our women, but not having those resources. So you're going to find large, instances of disappointment and frustration and a lot of times resentment that comes from those comes from a lot of women in our community, just because of that not understanding that lack of resources. And particularly because I have these conversations with my wife all the time. We talk about, like, there's a particular class of black woman. Now I want to be very specific when I say this, like, this is not all black women, but there's a particular class of black women that is a very loud, vocal, influential minority that holds black men to a standard that, based upon the social, cultural, economic resources that we don't have access to, we could never meet. And so self-fulfilling prophecy of saying, well, the kind of, black men ain't shit, or, whatever reason, he doesn't make enough money, he's, not cultured enough, he's not, whatever the case may be. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because there's no way black men in mass could live up to that standard.
Absolutely.
What you always talk about is the dual black male economy. Like,
absolutely.
I saw it was a meme. I may or may not have sent it to you, but it had one box. It has a woman saying, like, well, a man should pay 3 times his salary to get, like, a engagement ring for the woman. And the man's response is like, so
right,
that is the father going to pay
for the wedding?
And,
right.
And going by the 83%, number. Okay, a lot of us come from divorced families. I know personally. My father.
We only got it. We only got a minute, brother. So I want to give Brother Mais the chance to close out your statement, sir. Your reflections.
I just want to say, when you're talking about a black man and contextualizing, just remember this: that the middle black family has a net worth of about $1,700 compared to $121,000 of white family. So that's the cost of a family in America, and black men can't afford. We don't have the $121,000 to negotiate with our women with, and they expect us to have what white men have, and we don't have that. And that's at the root of our conflict with our women, and we got to address that.
I that's powerful closing, brother, and I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. I really am grateful to both of you. And I want to close out by saying, I'm here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and unrealistic needs.